time to make a start. My name is Kevin So. I would like to welcome you all to this session, and I should say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which time zone you are located. And I'm an associate professor with the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Oklahoma State University. It is my honor to co-chair the 2022 annual TTRA conference with my great colleagues, Dr. Lena Shevchenkova from the University of Florida, and also Dr. Eugene Tomlinson from the Royal Roads University. We are absolutely delighted to welcome you to this afternoon's virtual sessions of the Ideas Fair. So basically, the virtual Ideas Fair sessions are very much like a poster session where presenters will be interacting with conference attendees, except the fact that the interactions will be taking place virtually on Zoom. So to ensure efficiency, the co-chairs have decided that the two sessions, tourism experience and diversity, equity, inclusion, are joined. All presenters were provided with detailed information to submit their recording prior to the conference. Now, for presenters who did not get to submit their videos, they still have the chance to present toward the end of today's session. The recordings will be played via Zoom. Attendees will not have access to video or audio functions. Their microphones and cameras are muted.
What the hell?
It's the same thing.
Can you all hear me? And they cannot unmute. Attendees can submit questions during the presentation. They can also submit their comments during this playback using the chat function provided by Zoom. During this time, presenters can type back to questions and comments, and we will also have a short break for Q&A after 2 or 3 presentations. After the presentation playback, the presenters will go on live and verbally answer questions submitted on Zoom at the end of the session. Basically, at the end, we will have a general discussion session as well. So without further ado, I would like to first introduce the first study presented by Dr. Samuel Hosany, titled 10 Years of Research on Memorable Tourism Experience, a Review and Research Agenda. Thank you for the presentation. I'm sure you all enjoyed the music. I surely did. And so now let's introduce the second presentation titled Exploring Experience Measurements in Tourism Research, presented by Huimin Liu from Temple University. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Huimin Liu from Temple University. The research I present today is about the measurement of experience in tourism research. For a long time, we face a problem when we study experience, that is how to measure experience in tourism research. We haven't reached any consensus on the measurement of experience. However, as we all know, experience is a prominent concept in our field. Each year, there are many papers on this topic. No consensus on the measurement obviously impact the quantitative research on experience and harm result comparability. So our research has three research questions. The first one is about whether we can measure experience. We explore the measurability of experience. The second one is how we measure experience in the past. We summarize the existing measurements. The third one is about how we should measure experience, and we propose a measurement framework. Let me start with the first question, measurability. By large, measurability is a philosophical question. We review the literature on measurability, and according to addition theory, a construct can be measured only if its elements can be added. So for example, several slices of bread can be added as a loaf, then bread can be measured. But what we have is not as simple as bread. Experience is complicated and psychological construct. And we cannot simply add experience together. There are several streams of research that oppose measuring psychological constructs. But some researchers spotted the measurability of psychological constructs. They suggested that if we accept cautious operationalism and realism, we can measure psychological constructs. By accepting those philosophies, experience is real, and we can measure experience by assigning numbers to the quality of experience non-randomly. And measurement models can facilitate the measure operations. So now we solve the question of whether we can measure experience or not. The answer is yes. Next, let's turn to a more practical question. What we have done? To do that, we reviewed all the papers with keyword experience in title from 2015 to 2021 in tourism management and also tourism research, Journal of Travel Research. And after eliminating book reviews, research notes, and unrelated research papers, 131 papers remain in total. And we can find out that most of the papers only measure dimensions or a context-based experience. The papers use models to measure, which means that we consider experience as a latent variable. That echoes the measurement literature, and models are used to measure psychological construct. But how about measuring the dimensions or context-based experience? Did we do it right? And are there any aspects we need to pay attention to? So we went back to the measurement literature. Balloon concepts are the fuzzy, multifaceted, and context-dependent concepts. There are many balloon concepts in social science, and experience is obviously one of them. Previous literature suggests that we can estimate following concepts using context-based metrics. So measurement of dimensions or the context-based experience align with the measurement literature. However, we also find a problem, that is measurement model should be justified well. Based on that, we propose a measurement framework, which is context-based metrics with a justified measurement model. To do that, we should first scrutinize the context where the experience concept is fitted in, then identify important dimensions or components of experience in that context, and use the measurements of those components to measure experience. Last, we should guarantee the measurements of those components are from justified measurement models so that the measurements are valid. That is pretty much what I have for this presentation. Thank you very much. And please let me know if you have comments and questions.
Thank you, Huimin, for an interesting study. And I can see that we have some questions typed on the chat here, which we will look at them after the third presentation because we have a short break for Q&A. So now I would like to introduce the third presentation titled Crisis and Revitalization of Rural Tourism in the Appalachian Region by Nicole Lopez. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nicole Lopez, and I'm going to talk about my research titled Crisis and Revitalization of Rural Tourism in the Appalachian Region of Ohio in the midst of the pandemic, and this is gathered from the perspective of key stakeholders. As an introduction, we have the rural tourism has become a priority to achieve economic growth, and as well as it has been, as we know, COVID-19 has been a great influence in tourism, not only in the United States, but around the world in a negative way. Rural tourism has been seen as a light of hope to start recovering, and some studies suggest that the pandemic actually has had a positive impact in rural tourism. It increased the demand of tourism who want to visit low-risk destination areas that are not crowded, and also there has been an increase in the interest of performing outdoor activities and focus on domestic travel. However, there has not been research, or there is limited research regarding rural tourism status in the United States, and more specifically in the Appalachian region of Ohio. For that reason, this study has the purpose to understand the core challenges that business owners and policymakers face, and what strategies that are implemented and what lessons they learn from those times. What made them thrive, what made them survive, basically. So a little to review, we have that unlike other forms of tourism, rural tourism had experienced a lower impact compared to other forms of tourism because it has some advantages such as low travel costs, short time consumption, low flow density, and it allows people to have that fulfillment of their psychological needs to travel, to interact, to visit new places, to visit natural landscapes. And of course, it provides visitors with a sense of safety at the same time. So for that reason, this study used as methodology qualitative research to gather the experiences of the business owners and policymakers and other stakeholders that actually provided information related to the challenges that they faced during COVID and firsthand. We collect this data through interviews using open-ended questions that were performed and seen in Zoom and Teams, Microsoft Teams as well. The participants were recruited using a snowball sampling, and they must have the experience working in rural tourism, accommodation, food and beverage, conventions and visitors, or more other parts of the industry. For the net analysis, we use codes that were developed in categories, then themes that basically follow the card model, challenge, action, and results. Some of the results that we have were demographics, people who provided answers, and combined together, they had 30 years of experience. one of the categories was the challenges, mainly related to the lack of funding, lack of visitors, lack of income, cuts that they had on their budgets, especially income in the CBDs, and the problems of channels of distribution for their products and raw materials. Some of the strategies were related to being eager to follow the guidelines proposed by the government, digitalization, including in restaurants, subwards, check-ins, check-outs in hotels, provide discounted rates, guarantee raw materials by opening communication channels with them and with their providers and negotiating the prices. And other strategies are related to health, like providing the right equipment, thinking about mental health, and also in the workplace, such as implementing remote work and, unfortunately, furlough people and laying off people in some cases, require or not require the vaccine, and share the sanitation products. And as I mentioned before, opening the communication challenges. Other strategies were related to use of social media, their websites to keep that communication and also to promote their businesses as well. Finally, the opportunities that I saw is that more people are interested in rural tourism, more people are interested in helping small businesses and outdoor activities. And COVID-19 also raised awareness of the importance of mental health. There are more options for rural destinations that people are aware of. And of course, internally, the restaurants, the hotels, even the CBDs have improved their cleaning practices and are more flexible now in terms of working from home. So as a conclusion, we can say that the industry faced new challenge. It is still facing new challenges now that most of the measures have been lifted. There is an increase in the interest of outdoor activities, and the rural region of Ohio has great potential to promote outdoor activities so they can thrive during this tendency of increased interest, as well as that rural tourism is a viable option for communities to achieve economic growth, as well as recover the whole industry from, or help recover the whole industry from the pandemic. And of course, people in leadership positions should pay attention to these tendencies and develop strategies and plans that allow rural areas to succeed. I appreciate your time listening to my presentation, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a wonderful rest of your session. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Excellent. So now we have seen 3 great presentations. They focus on separate but important topics within the tourism literature. The first one focuses on a review of the literature on memorable tourism experience, as well as putting together some interesting and thought-provoking research directions moving forward. The second study is about developing good measurements to capture the concept of experience in tourism research. And the last one focuses on crisis and revitalization of rural tourism. Now let's take a short break for Q&A. We have some time, 3 to 5 minutes, to have some questions from the audience. I saw that we already got some interesting discussions happening now. Let me get to that. Yeah, so I have the first question. The first question comes from Huimin Liu. The question has been answered by Dr. Simon Hosany already, so that's good. And so now let's move to the next one that has not been answered. I'm wondering how you, as the question to Huimin, define the tourism experience in your study. I think I'm a bit confused of what dimensions of experiences were measured. Sorry if I missed.
Thanks for your question. Actually, I'm typing, but I can answer verbally. That's actually a tricky question we faced when we do this research. We actually summarized the existing definition of experience in our paper, but we did not, we haven't proposed definition by ourselves, because by summarizing those existing definitions, we realize that experience, the concept of experience, is so multifaceted, it's so fuzzy. So that's the reason why we want to propose a Merriman framework. So in the framework, we advocate that we can define the concept of experience based on the context, so that there won't be much confusion. If we just provide a general concept of experience, then that might not help with the experiment in specific contexts. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Huimin. And I actually have a follow-up question. So within the tourism and hospitality settings, we often talk about experience as customer experience, and sometimes it could be a travel experience or tourist experience. And so based on your understanding, how the experience that we study within the tourism and hospitality context is different from the experience that scholars in other disciplines study?
Experience actually has been studied by several disciplines, such as marketing and other social science. I think the concept of experience in our research fields actually derive mainly from marketing and sociology. So I think in our research field, the definition of experience actually, there are some similarities. We actually have several kind of definitions which echoes the definitions in the mother disciplines. So also we have like adaptations, because we are different. We have different contexts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. So.
Any other questions from the audience? I saw Dr. Brian Ritchie posted a couple of questions which have been answered by Dr. Samuel Hosany already. So we're good. Any other questions from the audience? All right, let's move to the next presentation. Next presentation is titled Self-Congruence and Tourist Happiness, the Mediating Role of Positive Emotions and Meaning, presented by FATIMA YILMAZ.
Hello everyone, my name is FATIMA YILMAZ. I'm a final year PhD student at SOAS University of London. This research is a part of my PhD thesis, and I have two excellent co-authors, ABOSAG and Hosany. Our poster presentation focuses on the relationship between self-congruency and tourist happiness. As you see from the conceptual framework, we also wanted to understand the mediating role of positive emotion and meaning. First of all, I want to talk about why we conducted this research. As you all know, the need for happiness has been widely and universally recognized, regardless of the people's different lifestyle. Its importance and the way of its measurement has been receiving considerable attention from psychologists, economists, and sociologists, and political scientists. This growing interest in happiness has also affected business. And then researchers have started also explored how to create marketing strategies that increase consumers' happiness. For instance, Nesquik claims that you can't buy happiness, but you can drink it. And Coca-Cola campaign is open happiness tagline. and Hugo Boss, like others, promoting the fragrance of celebration of happiness. When we look at some destination marketing organizations, we notice that they also recognize the importance of emotions, and we see it is more fun in Philippines, and I love New York, and so on. And then we notice that like happiness is important also in tourism experience. And then we started to ask questions such as what might affect tourist happiness in tourist destination experience. And we look at the psychology literature and we found out that self-congruity is considered to be an important antecedent to happiness. When we look at the tourism literature, there is a little research on how self-congruity affects tourist happiness. Therefore, as a researcher, we decided to fill this gap in the literature, and we aim to investigate the relationship between self-congruity and tourist happiness by exploring existing research from marketing, psychology, and tourism. And then when it comes to the research methodology, the quantitative data were collected via self-administrated online questionnaire on a professional online data collection platform, which is Qualtrics, and the data collected in May 2020. And the target population was narrowed on American tourists who have visited London. The focus was only American tourists is because US and UK are culturally similar countries according to Hofstede cultural dimensions, and we found out some cross-cultural studies argued that individuals with similar culture are more likely to be perceived as an in-group, and those from different culture, they perceive themselves as out-group. Then we decided as a researcher, it is important to understand how American tourists experience a culturally similar tourist destination, which is UK in our case. And we also wanted to measure whether they feel self-congruity because the destination is culturally similar to them, and how their self-congruity level affect their happiness. And the scales for each construct are provided in the poster as you see, and convenience sampling and cross-sectional data approach adapted. And to analyze the data, two statistics software packages used, SPSS and AMOS, and we achieved acceptable fit for measurement and structural model, and our results showed us convergent and discriminant validity supported. And for the hypothesized relationship, we used structural equation modeling, and finally our data revealed that actual and ideal self-congruity positively affect tourist happiness in tourism literature. And also when it comes to mediating role of positive emotion, as you see from the table on our poster, they also partially mediation was supported according to our data results. So, to conclude our research, unique to this present study, we believe we raised awareness of the importance of quantifying and managing actual and ideal self-congruity in relation to specific destination will enhance overall tourist happiness, and we hope that the present study will offer a useful contribution to the current literature on tourist happiness by offering detailed examination of actual self-congruity and ideal self-congruity as an antecedent to tourist happiness. Further, we could suggest tourism manager and they should establish a set of new social tourism programs or expand the current one by considering the impact of self-congruity as a useful tool to enhance tourist happiness. And I think that's all for our poster presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yatima. Thank you for the presentation, and the relationship between tourism and happiness is always fascinating to many of us. All the best with your dissertation, or in the UK you say thesis. And so now let's move to the very last presentation, recorded presentation, titled Summative Evaluation of Tourist Experiences, Chinese Tourists in Europe, presented by Ling Huang. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my video presentation. I'm Ling Huang, a PhD student at the Free University of Bolzano. Today, I'm very happy to present my preliminary analysis of customized tourism experience. First, why do I study customized travel experience? According to Craig, one characteristic of post-Fordism is the increasing preference for alternatives to mass tourism. Although tourist experience has been a very well-established area, it remains unclear that how customized travel products affect tourist experience. Europe is the most visited destination by Chinese tourists, second only to the Asian destinations. Despite that, little is known about Chinese tourists in Europe. And one striking trend that emerged before COVID-19 is that the number of Chinese tourists who selected customized tours increased by nearly 300%, representing 8% of total trips to Europe. However, tourism research has not kept abreast of this important niche segment. So, considering the paucity of literature on Chinese tourists in European destinations and about customized tours, the purpose of this research is to review the evaluation of customized travel experiences of Chinese tourists in Europe. The online travel reviews on my Fengwo website were used for this study. 311 reviews in Mandarin were collected from 25 popular itineraries. The usable reviews were 277, as 34 were with missing text. This study first adopted the content analysis approach to explore the evaluation of Chinese tourists. After that, the semantic analysis was used to identify the main themes of online travel reviews. The results are displayed in this table. As you can see, 9 categories were merged into 4 themes, of which the agency attributes were evaluated most positively by reviewers. The category attraction and future patronage have been assessed positively for about 110 times. On the contrary, the frequency of positively evaluating supporting core attributes was much lower. The results of this study show that, apart from core attributes, the supporting attributes have played a role in tourist experience. It concurred with the Chuan and Wang's structural model that tourist experience consists of 2 dimensions. The dimension of the peak tourist experience, referring to the main attractions at the destination, and the dimension of the supporting consumer experience, namely eating, moving, and lounging. Nevertheless, the dimension of agency attributes has not been touched upon in the literature. Customized tours, a mix of the independent and group tours, lying with the continuum of traditional travel modes, largely depend on the service performance of travel consultant and the quality of planned itinerary. Therefore, this dimension should be considered when measuring tourist experiences. So, the results suggest that under this travel mode, the reviewers assess most favorably the agency attributes rather than any category of core attributes and supporting core attributes, which indicates that the agencies should, at the pre-trip stage, make elaborate, tailored roadbook by listening to traveler's voice and assigning a professional travel advisor. After embarking on travel, the consultant should still available for solving any expected incidents because it appears from the results that fulfilling those two rules will be the backbone of a satisfying travel experience. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ling Ling, for the presentation. Now is the time for us to open the floor to the audience to have a short break for Q&A. Any questions about the previous two presentations? Any questions? Okay, we don't have any questions from the audience. Let me start with the first question. I have a question for FATIMA on the study looking at self-congruence and tourist happiness. And so my question is that happiness from a tourist point of view has been studied extensively in previous research. And I wonder if the time measure between when you capture self-congruence and tourist happiness would affect the extent to which you see the magnitude of the relationship or the relationships included in your model.
So thank you so much for the question. And I think, yeah, you are right. Like the happiness is getting a lot of attention in the recent studies, especially like they are not focusing on the hedonic perspective of happiness only, and they included the eudaimonia perspective of happiness, including like meaning, engagement, relationship, so on. And we also decided to examine as a mediating role of meaning and positive emotion in our research, like compared to other research. And in terms of your questions, yeah, we measured their self-congruity and happiness level, and looking at their past experience. We couldn't collect the data on time, like asking the tourists exactly while they are experiencing the destination due to COVID restrictions, so there were no tourists coming to London. And we asked them like if they have any clear experience of London in their 6 months period, and if they say yes, and we agreed that like they have clear experience and they memorize what they experience in London. And but in terms of your question, is it the question you were trying to ask, like, or I misunderstood, like?
Yeah, kind of. So in a lot of situations, we measure the predictors and the outcome variables at the same time. So what I'm trying to ask is, if we say, because we know that tourist happiness is likely to fluctuate, right? So I may be taking a vacation with my family. So my level of perceived happiness could increase as a result of the travel experience. but to what extent that increased level of happiness is going to stay at the higher level after the trip, we don't know, right? So my question is that, you know, the time lag between, if there is a time lag in between when you measure the predictors and the outcome variables, as the time lag increases, would the impact on tourist happiness also decrease over time?
We couldn't measure this because we couldn't measure, like we couldn't ask them in the past and we couldn't ask them later on, and that's why we couldn't measure this in our study, unfortunately. Yeah,
that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
very interesting study. Any questions from the audience? Maybe we can move forward to the remaining presentations. I don't know whether the next presenter is here. The presenter may decide to present the study live through Zoom. Hiren Roy, are you here?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Are you planning on presenting
live
study live? Yes.
That's right.
Okay. Hand over to you.
Can I share?
You can try. If not, we can get.
Okay, let me see. It should.
Excellent. So we have Hiren Roy to present a study titled LGBTIQ plus inclusion in the workplace and the response of food service industry, a study on Vancouver visitor destination.
Good afternoon from Vancouver. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this lively, unfortunately. And I know that I have a little bit time, not more than 5 minutes. I promise I'll keep it within that time. And again, welcome to my presentation. As moderator explained, my research topic is LGBTIQ plus inclusion in the workplace and the response of food service industry, and it based in Vancouver. I know you're not far away from Vancouver. You're just on the island. So I have other co-writers, one from Morocco University, from Labat, and another person is my master's student who was along with me. So I have a couple of outlines. First, I'll introduce a brief, very short introduction, then I'll jump to the objective, then literature review, a little bit background, not elaborately, due to the time constraint. Then I'll explain a little bit methodology, conclusion, and I'll go for the question and comment section. As we know that LGBTQ inclusiveness is a major concern nowadays, not only for the hospitality tourism industry, it's basically for all other industries. And researcher, what they say is that, particularly Liddell et al., he has been argued long time before workplace climate matters, and particularly to support these perspective, LGBT communities also matters to the organization. Over the couple of decades, the community has substantially received significant attention about this group of people. Recently, it has got more awareness has been arised, and for that, even United Nations also has demanded that business enterprise should advocate LGBTQ inclusiveness and should work as active agents to change the scenario. However, we can see the same impact in the tourism and hospitality context, but tourism hospitality industry constantly experiencing challenging how to include this group of people in the business organization. And my perspective, my research is based on that. The LGBTQ inclusiveness workplace become an important strategic position in this sector, particularly hospitality tourism. And I'm going to, this is a conceptual paper. I just like to let you know, I will conduct the research from the points of organizational change theory. And this change theory means the process of adjusting the organization change in the environment. A couple of previous research also has been conducted. like we can say that Canning and found argued that changes is the movement from the current known state to a future unknown state. Change management studies generally focus on organization change at different levels, such as individual level, like we can say emphasizing attitude, perception, people's emotions, teams and organization level, emphasizing organizational environment and population, specific norms, roles, interaction among employees. However, we're going to use this theory who has been discussed by scholar Lewins, that is called classic phrasing, changing, rephrasing or phrasing approach. And we'll use this theory in our research. And the research will be based on the food service industry in Vancouver. Now, objective of this research are definitely similar to other research. We have objective in order to measure LGBTQ plus inclusion in the food service operation. This research, we will explore how operations achieve this workplace inclusion from employees' perspective. There are a couple of research has been conducted from employer perspective, but it is been not research from the employee's perspective. So we'd like to find the answer from the employee's perspective, what is their perception. Especially this study will be aimed to identify any intervention or challenges that may arise for LGBTQ inclusion in different stages of organizational change. We'll be using city of Vancouver for the study location. Vancouver is very famous. We can say that in 2021, Lonely Planet designated Vancouver is one of the best sustainable cities in the world. Statistics Canada also says we have more than 6 million people tourist comes every year in Vancouver. Beyond that, Vancouver also a top destination for LGBTQ community people from around the world. Sample we'll take from the food service organization, how we are going to extract through the telephone directories and extensive website of the where the food service businesses has been added, listing has been addressed. And due to the small population, all the food service operations will be approached and as per participate in this study. As far as my concern, I live in Vancouver, I know that everybody will not approach, but we like to approach to all of the establishment. As part of the exploratory nature of this study, we will do the face-to-face semi-structured interview conducted and providing the opportunities for interviewer to probe and expand interview responses. And questions will adapt mostly from the similar studies according to the objective of our research. And conclusion, what we would like to conclude, I know it's not feasible to say that there will be exactly same conclusion, but we are aiming that outcomes of this study will provide valuable knowledge and direction to develop clear and informed strategies for the food service operation wishing to adopt LGBTIQ inclusiveness at their workplace. So this is all about our research. Any questions or comments will be highly appreciated from your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiram, for the presentation.
Thank you.
As we are aware, diversity and inclusion is a hot topic in many different countries, especially when we look at diversity and inclusion in workplace. And definitely in the tourism and hospitality domain, it's a great area for us to do research looking at diversity and inclusion. Any questions from the audience? We have first question from Dr. Brian Ritchie. Can you tell us more about your data collection?
Can I answer now or
you can do that now.
Okay, I can answer it now. We haven't started. Hello, Dr. Ritchie. Nice to meeting you virtually. We haven't collected the data yet as it is a conceptual paper. We will be waiting to collect the data after the summertime because I have experience collecting data during my PhD program during summertime. Not everybody would like to give the answer. And I myself coming from the industry who has been about 16 years in Vancouver in the hotel sector. So I'm waiting to collect the data after the summer, and definitely my plan is to sampling method, snowballing method, because I know a lot of chefs and managers. Through them, I will be able to know the staff's member more. So that is my strategies. Snowballing method.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can move towards the end of this session, which is the general discussion. Now we can take any questions from the audience about any presentations that we have seen in this session, and we can have an open discussion. You may submit your questions through the chat function, or you can simply unmute yourself. You should be able to ask your questions verbally as well.
Hey, is that okay if I ask a question?
Yes, please introduce yourself first.
Oh yes, of course. My name is Marianna Strzelecka, and I'm interested in the memorable tourism experiences, and perhaps the author can help me to understand the conceptual difference or the relationship between the memorable tourism experiences and then transformative tourism experiences. Is there any literature that integrates both, and how the both, I guess, relate to each other? This is not my area of expertise, so I might not be aware of full.
Thank you. Great question. And we have, I believe, Dr. Samuel Hosany is still here. Samuel, would you like to answer this question? Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, that's a very great question. I think from the presentation we had earlier,
I'm sorry, is it just me or other people as well? It's not very
memorable
it's his connection.
And I would say at the end of the day, it's just how we, perhaps us as researcher, we tend to, I wouldn't say complicate thing, at the end of the day, it's just how.
I'm sorry to interrupt. At the beginning, there was some.
Sorry, I'm just going to try to get closer to the laptop regarding the overlap between tourism experiences, memorable.
Can you hear me okay, Samuel?
Can you hear me?
Yes. At the beginning, it was not very clear. Can you start from the beginning? Thank you.
All right, then. Okay, I will do again. Thank you very much for the question. I think it's a very interesting one in terms of looking at the overlap between tourism experiences, memorable tourism experiences, and also I think earlier Kevin mentioned about customer experience. And I think I would say perhaps as academics, we could potentially overcomplicate things in terms of try to pick differences between those. I would say at the end of the day, it's just the way we conceptualize or measure. There's a whole idea around experiences itself. Memorable tourism experiences has heavily been borrowed from tourism experience itself, which has a history of overlap with customer experience. I think at the end of the day, while we're looking at how to create great experiences from a tourism point of view, and some of those experiences are going to be memorable, some not. I think part of the research we've done, what we found out is people tend to define experiences or memorable experiences more from a positive point of view, where we do have lots of evidence where people have sort of negative experiences, and this is the negative experiences, this is the one that they remember. So I think there is a bit sort of a shift needs, there's a need for a shift from perhaps sort of seeing tourist experiences as always being hedonic, to really try to capture, the negative experiences as well. I'm not so sure whether that's sort of try to answer this question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Samuel, for the response. And we also have another question coming from Dr. Brian Ritchie to Nicole. Wonder if you could give us 1 to 2 key messages or outcomes from your work. Also, what would be 1 to 2 recommendations for industry, government from your results?
Well, answering to the first question, one of the main points that the participants brought up was the fact that people are more interested in practicing outdoor activities. Even hotels that were not related to those activities have implemented some sort of program or short trip to fulfill that need. Second of all, rural tourism areas were not as impacted by COVID-19 as urban areas due to the fact that travel was allowed sooner, and also because it allowed to follow the guidelines from governments. Wearing masks, social distancing, open spaces allow that. And 1 to 2 recommendations for industry, government, it's to focus on rural tourism development. And in general, focusing on rural development, it's important. And it has gained more popularity, but at the same time, we're still focusing on urban areas and developing those areas. So it's important to change that focus, which most of them have done. And the second recommendation would be supporting financially is not enough. As we have seen, many governments have provided some sort of financial aid, but without the support of training and providing some sort of health insurance, we can say, or even promoting the destinations. Business owners can do much if the destination is not very well known. So that it's another recommendation. They have to focus on marketing those areas. Thank you.
Excellent. Very interesting recommendations, perhaps for tourism operators or government agencies to consider as well. Any other questions? I see another comment from Dr. Brian Ritchie. In Australia, we had a lot of tourists visiting rural areas. They were not prepared, and the locals were exhausted by the increased demand. It was also hard to get staff to rural areas. Yes, that's a concern, and in many parts of the tourism sector, even in metropolitan areas, we're still seeing this problem, especially here in the United States.
If I can add something to that comment, that is exactly the problem that was seen, because they did have not the opportunity to promote rural destinations before, and when it was necessary, they were not prepared. So that's why the recommendation is for governments to start focusing on that and support, as I mentioned before, business owners with rural tourism development in general. Thanks.
Excellent. Any other questions? Well, if we don't have any questions, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you again for participating in this wonderful session. I enjoyed the presentations very much, as well as the discussions that we have had. And I look forward to having the opportunity to meet each and every one of you at perhaps future conferences. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.